What's up? What's up? What's up? You know that intro, we're gonna have to change that intro and add me into that intro since I'm a part of this now. Welcome to Confidence Factor Talks. I am one of your co-hosts, Lamont Gwynn, where we have heart-level conversations that lead to transformation. We got a great show tonight because we're talking about fathers and the impact they have had on our lives. We have a panel discussion. We're gonna have a great conversation. Because you know, here at Confidence Factor, it's all about heart-level conversations that lead to transformation. And I can't do this by myself, because if I did, it'd be a boring show. So, without further ado, all the way from Jacksonville, Florida, my brother from another mother. Welcome to the stage, Bobby B. You on mute, brother? You on mute? There we go.
I think you turn the music down on me. Don't turn
Nah,
the music down. I want the whole red carpet. I want the full red carpet. Whoa.
It started over.
Hey.
There you go.
Today is a great day, and it is the best day of my life. I'm excited about today's show, man.
Me too.
We're talking about fathers. You know, I come a long way. You know, I did a podcast one time, and I was not in a good space with my father at the time, and I don't think everything came out properly during that podcast. I went back later and I started thinking about all the things I learned from my father, and things began to change. So I'm excited about tonight to share just a little piece, and also mostly to hear from the guys, man. There's a lot of guys coming through tonight that will be sharing about fatherhood. And I don't think this year we put out the table. You know, normally we put the table out and they just put the old wet socks from last year and a couple of ties that got, returned. That's how we normally do Father's Day. But this year I think it was a lot better. So I'm excited about that, man. I turn it back over to you, Lamont. You can bring everybody else up, brother, since you're grooving.
And then there's my brother down the way at the Hill Estates, where you need a code to get in. You just can't drive up and be like knocking on the door, right? You got to hand over your license. They got to make a call and say, yeah, you can come in. All the way from east of where I am, Orlando, my brother, Darian Hill. Welcome to the show.
What's up, fellas? The Lions are in the building, and I'm happy to be back, in the lineup. In the CF Talks. Of course, you're absolutely right, Lamont. If you're going to get to me, you better have, you're navigating to the East Orlando area, you better have a GPS first of all. You know what I'm saying? And you got to have a confidence factor key to get in this house. You know what I'm saying? You have the confidence factor key. So I'm glad to be back in the building with y'all to be able to have heart level conversations that lead to transformation. Of course, we always say that one conversation can transform your life. And today we're going to have one of those conversations that's transformative. It's about honoring fathers, man. Whether you're a father, whether you're a father figure, because you don't have to be a father, but you can be a father figure. We want to honor you tonight. And so we're going to share, of course, some things about our fathers that, lessons from our fathers, things that we learn, things that we appreciate, things that we honor, things that we take away. We want you guys to join in the conversation. Want you to participate with us in this conversation. So I'm ready. Let's make it happen.
And before we go any further, we definitely have to give our brother Rudy LaRose a happy birthday, brother. Happy birthday to you. We know that you are always in the building.
That's right.
Always.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Yeah. Happy birthday. Yeah,
y'all gonna make me get my karaoke mic.
Come on, you gonna make me pull up the funk, dog.
Yeah, I bet you can come up with a dope melody. We can come up with a little acapella. No Boys to Men.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be lip singing on that one.
I'm just happy that my voice ain't cracked the damn screen. I'm in gratitude right now.
Yes. Complete gratitude. Father, I just want to thank you for not cracking the screen while I was singing for the public.
Oh, shit.
And all the way from Orlando, we got to bring up our brother, Dr. Love, Javon, Dr. Love Jones. Welcome to the show.
What's up? What's up? What's up? I feel good. I feel great. Put me on. I ain't going to be late. I'm just here to be present. Not a moment too great.
Yeah. We can, hey, fellas, we can level up now. Mr. Dr. Love Jones, Mr. Level Up is in the building, so we can finally level up. Yeah.
Level up.
Yes.
So it's all about the process. Level up. It's a process.
So Darian, tell the fellas why we're here. Why are we here?
Hey, listen, we're here because you said yes to yourself, and we also, as a community, said yes to ourselves individually and collectively. As you know, Confidence Factor is a safe space, is a community for entrepreneur-minded men, professional men, to have heart-level conversations that lead to transformation. And the truth is that conversations really transform lives. Oftentimes for us men, what do we do in situations? We stuff things in, we keep it to ourselves. We go through what we call the lid. We isolate ourselves, we feel lonely, we feel like we don't matter, and we don't have conversation. We don't release the things that's inside of us to allow for a space of transformation. And we recognize in all of our lives, individually, Javon, the Bobby B, Lamont, Rudy, Wayne, all of us in this community recognize that as we started to get, involved in life, that without these conversations, we get stuck. And so this community is here to help to support us with the right, number one, tools and resources, and of course, the information necessary to be able to grow and accelerate. And we have something called our SMART principles, right? So SMART principles is number one, focusing on self-mastery, because we know that you can't grow, beyond what your self-image is. The way you see yourself literally is going to be the catalyst for your growth. And so we want to help you to invest in you. We want you to help you to say yes more to yourself. We want you to believe more in who you are. We want you to believe more in your gifts and your insights, and support you in that process. And of course, next thing after self-mastery is going to be a community and accountability, right? The Organization for Training and Development basically said this: the odds of you getting to any goal in your life will increase by 95%. You heard me right, 95%, by simply having what? Accountability in the community. And oftentimes, here's what happens. We run from accountability in community because we tend to know that, hey, if we say and tell somebody that, hey, listen, we want to accomplish that, then we have to actually hold ourselves to it, right? So we run from that. But that's the thing that we need. That's the thing that we truly, if we truly are committed to our goals, we want to be able to enroll other people into the things that we say we want for our life. And we want to support you with a community that's going to help you to push forward. And then last but not least, of course, is resources and tools, right? So you have to have the right information, right? You have to have, people pouring into you. You have to have, the right systems, the right process, things to help you to be able to grow. And so here in this community, we're here to provide you with the SMART principles so that you can have what we call a confidence factor. That confidence factor is a certainty, is a way in which you go through life, is the way that you move, is the way that you show up, is your presence, is your aura, is your essence, is your insights. It's everything about you that when you show up, people go like, man, there's something special about that particular individual. And we want you to know that you're special. We're here to celebrate you and honor you. When the world says that your voice doesn't matter, we're here to tell you that your voice does. We're here to tell you that your presence matters. We're here to support you in the gift that you are to this world. And that's why today we're honoring fathers, because so oftentimes we've seen this throughout the world, throughout the community, that we are not honored. Fathers are not honored. Men are not honored in the presence and the gift that we are. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here, fellas.
Well, like I said, man, the way the fathers get honored, they normally put the little fold-out table and the wet socks from last year. You purchase that, you just put it in the bag, a little paper bag with a little twisty tie on the top, and we give that to the fathers. That's how fathers. That's how fathers have been treated.
Man, listen.
Yeah, man.
How fathers got honored is the big piece of chicken.
Yeah,
it's the big piece of chicken. That's how fathers get honored.
I hope we have a real heart level conversation tonight, Jack. I hope it's real tonight.
Hey, it's gonna be real, because I want more than the big piece of chicken. I'll tell you that.
Facts.
Facts. You understand me? Facts. So yeah, so we're gonna have this great conversation tonight, and then we want to enroll you guys in this process, right? I mean, the reality is when you celebrate somebody else, you're celebrating yourself. When you honor your father, when you honor somebody else who's done something for you, you're essentially honoring yourself. Remember, whatever we release from ourselves, and my coach used to always say this. He said, what you give away is what you get to keep, right? What you give away is what you get to keep. And what he's essentially saying is that whatever you sow from yourself, you're essentially sowing back into yourself. And so when you honor someone, when you appreciate someone, when you give adoration to someone, when you spend the time to celebrate others, then you're celebrating yourself. So we give you that platform and opportunity to celebrate yourself by celebrating others as well. So yeah, man, I'm excited about this conversation. Let's get this bad boy rocking and rolling. Is there anything else you guys wanted to mention? Any announcements that we have going on that you guys wanted to mention before we get this thing going?
No, let's get it jumping.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so Lamont, Mr. Producer, talk to us, man. What are we doing next? You're muted, sir.
Let's bring on one of our panelists, Wayne Moody, so we can actually get this conversation started.
Yeah.
And welcome to the show, Wayne.
Hey,
Life coach.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Wayne, I'm sorry. I gotta say this. Your background looks so confident. It looked like you could just sip some tea and relax.
Hey.
It looks so comforting.
Hey,
right now.
this is my temporary office. My commute is from the bedroom to the living room.
Hey, listen. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. When we brought Wayne on, Wayne was in meditation. He looked like he was in the Himalayas. You know what I'm saying? He was like up in the coast and meditating. So you already know you're about to drop some serious nuggets because he just came from the Himalayas going into our show right now. You know what I'm saying?
I think he was levitating for like a second and then he just got back down.
I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that heart level shit right now. You understand me?
Speaking of which, if you listen to it, if you're watching us, type in heart level in the chat, in the comments, type in heart level and let us know what city that you may be listening and watching from. It's from replay. Go ahead and type hashtag replay. But go ahead and put heart level in the comments. Put which city you're listening to us from. And if it's a replay, go ahead and put replay in the comments. Appreciate that. There we go. Make it the house
ready. Yes, fellas.
So our conversation tonight is about the lessons we learned from our fathers. And Wayne, since you are our guest, how about you start us off? What are some of the lessons that you've learned from your dad that you find have been helpful and beneficial for you?
There are two things that comes to mind as I think about my dad, and I want to say that I have become aware of when I speak about my dad, even though he's transitioned, I always speak about him in the present tense because he is. So one of the things that I actually remember about my dad is that I grew up in a situation where my mom and dad separated, and I was like about 8, 9 years old. And until my mom passed away, my dad was never missing when it comes to the monies that was needed for his kids. He always showed up. There was no time when we needed that he didn't supply what we needed. So he was responsible. And that's one of the things that I can say my dad taught me responsibility. One of the things that I was blessed to have from my dad is what I call the blessing. For every time I would navigate myself in the city and where I would meet my dad talking to his friends, there was never a time when I showed up that he did not pull me and introduce me again to his friends. He would say, "Hey, come here. This is my boy." And I got what I call the blessing. We read in the Bible where Jesus Christ got the blessing when he says, "This is my beloved son." I got that over and over and over and over again from my dad. And I'm grateful to have had it. But one of the things that I learned, even in my own life, is that I can be that for those that might not have a father. Because one of the things that I know in my own life, I don't have any kids of my own, but there's so many sons and daughters that I have who I can now give the blessing to and I can approve them. But responsibility was one of the main things that I learned from my dad. And the other thing that I learned is humility. I was the first person to start the spiritual journey, and yet I saw my dad followed me in the spiritual journey that I took. And I had a chance to actually teach my dad principles, spiritual principles. And although he was my dad, although I had learned so much from him, he was humble enough to have me teach him what I experienced in my spiritual journey. So humility and responsibility are two of the things that I can say are a legacy that I have from my dad.
Yeah, love that. Love that. That's a great share, my man. And I mean, of course, it's interesting you said that, Wayne, because when I observe you as an individual, you know, those two things are so common thread in who you have become as an individual. You know, so interesting that you know we are such a mirror reflection of our fathers, and that's why it's so important to honor that. That's why I say it's to honor, because when you honor your dad, you're honoring a part of who you are. So we thank you for that share, man. That was great. I wanted to jump in and share something myself, if y'all don't mind, you know, to kind of keep the ball rolling. So I want to take it in a little bit of different direction. So again, what I just said is mirror reflection, right? We learn from our fathers and then we become that thing. So I remember when my dad was coming up in Antigua, you know, he started off as a salesman for this company called Brightons. And he was always somebody who was never, you know, going to be just a salesperson. He was always very inquisitive, always asking why, always trying to figure out, you know, how does this operate? How does this navigate? You know, he's always the guy that people would look at and say, you're not going to always be a salesperson. You know, they always knew that my dad was going to rise to either some sort of leadership position or something, or eventually leave and start his own. They already knew that because of just how he was. And so through the years, you know, my dad, you know, of course, started his businesses, but he was involved with this organization called the JCs. It was a community organization that focused on developing young leaders. And so over the years, I watched my father travel all around the world, doing speeches, becoming the vice president, the president of this organization, becoming a senator of the whole Caribbean and the United States, and seeing him do all these amazing things. And I'm in awe of my father. It's like, wow, like he's like my superhero, man. And like, I want to be like my dad, you know? And what was interesting is as I became an adult, I found myself struggling with the reality that I felt myself not being able to duplicate a lot of things he was doing. And I was like, what the hell? How is it that he developed this great speaking ability, leadership, right? Time management. He had all these skill sets that I was still struggling with myself to have. And I was like, okay, you know what? Over the years, it really bothered me. And it took me some time, you know, some time to work through it. And eventually I had a conversation with my dad and I said, hey, so how did you become this particular person? Like, how did you all of a sudden be so good at speaking, organization, writing, you know, resumes, writing business plans, doing all this stuff? I'm like, how do you become so good at all this stuff? Like, man, you're like a superstar to me, man. Damn, like I feel so, you know, not enough around you sometimes, right? And so he told me that going back to that organization called the JCs, he said when he was much younger, he enrolled in this organization, and because of this organization's focus on developing leaders and in multiple areas of development, that's where he got nurtured. And that's where he developed a lot of those skills. And so it really hit me, and I was like, you know, okay, so the only difference between me and my dad is the fact that he was in an ecosystem, he was in a community, he was around the right leadership, he was around the right information that helped him to become who he became. And I said, okay. So all of a sudden that kind of dropped a lot of the guilt and a lot of the shame and a lot of the things about who I felt I wasn't at that time. And I realized something. I said, okay, that's why I was so intentional in the way that I raised my kids. So as you guys know, I'm very intentional with making sure that I am present, making sure I am giving my kids everything that I thought that I didn't have, right? I just instinctively developed this appetite for wanting to make sure that the kids understood financial literacy, you know, they were involved in their personal development. They understood how to overcome fears and all this stuff, and being very intentional about it. No, I didn't know what was driving me, but it was because of how how I felt about my dad at the time, that distance I felt between me and my dad in terms of his development and my development. So it drove me to want to become very intentional in making sure that my kids never felt that way. So, the gift that my dad gave me, although that, sometimes it may seem strange. I'm not saying a gift like, oh, he taught me the humility or whatever. No, the gift of not teaching me those things propelled me to become a better father. So the gift that he gave me in not teaching me these things made me more intentional with one-upping him in the way that I am intentional with my kids, with my desire to make sure that they get everything that they needed to get so they can develop in the areas of financial literacy, develop in the area of speaking ability, develop in the areas of leadership and all these different things. And so that's one of the gifts that I've learned, and I've really come to appreciate. Number one, having this connection and communication with my dad now, and learning about what I have missed, and allowing myself to free myself of a lot of these emotions, and at the same time knowing how to now honor who I became as a result of that, and how powerful that was in the process to now be a good present father to my kids. And so I wanted to share that because it's a different angle of looking at your relationship with your parents, with your dad, than just the direct things that you end up learning from them as a result of what they teach you directly and or give you directly. And so, that's one of the things that was impactful for me as I've become of age in my 43 young years of life, and looking back on my relationship with my dad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Can I jump in here? Because I can honestly say this. I know exactly how you feel. I used to do the same thing with my dad, right? So let me give you the groundwork, right? So my dad is born in Albies Town, Guyana, right? Albies Town, right? It's one of the roughest areas. When I went to Ghana, I saw this, and then when my dad said that's where you're from, I saw it. Like, it's very rough, like, area, right? So he ended up from a young age going up and moving into Brooklyn, New York, and from there he was able to go to school, become a technician. I mean, not technician, engineer, and he was working for Bell Atlantic on Canal Street in New York, which eventually turned into Verizon, right? He was the executive there. And from after 9/11, now Canal Street is not too far from 9/11, the Twin Towers, and he was supposed to work that day. And he didn't go in for some reason. He felt something wasn't right. He didn't go in, and 9/11 happened. And eventually my dad retired from that position and went into business for himself. And at the time, he was already doing his tax business, which he had prior to I was being born. And I'm 34, so he had that for some years. And then eventually he was able to go into business himself. He started off at dry cleaners right on Kingston Avenue in Brooklyn, right off the corner of Bergen. And I saw my dad go from this journey of being this executive to owning his business and stuff. And the young boy in me was inspired by that, right? Just seeing him do what he's doing and seeing that. Now, of course, the young boy didn't see the struggles of what he had to sacrifice and some of the things he had to give up to get that. All I saw was, I want to be like my dad, right? So that has shaped me a lot to become the entrepreneur that I ever had. So, eventually I went to school, wanted to do business administrative because I wanted to, get into corporate America, but realized that was not my thing. I got burnt out of school, dropped out. All right, cool. So eventually I got into work, and then from the birth of my daughter, I decided to get back into entrepreneurship. I got into it, started doing different things. At the time, I was in the music business, trying to put together shows, athletes, trying to help, not athletes, rappers and artists to get on the next scene and get seen and discovered, right? That was my thing. And all I did was kept on transition from one space to another, to a point that my dad was doing different things in business. We actually was on together on some network marketing companies. We were business partners, and he always had the success. And I'm like, damn. And for me, I've never was able to even like chink that on, like get close to that. Like his success was so amount, and I was always like behind, supporting, but waiting for my turn, whatever. But then a lot of my downturns when I went got depressed in 2018 and all that, a lot of that came from me feeling like I wasn't living up. Like I felt like a disappointment to what my father, who he is, and me not being nowhere close to that. But that was not the truth. That was the illusion I was telling myself, right? And that was the thing that kept me further back from my purpose. So now, at that moment, I was turning 30, 5 years later. And one of the things my dad gave me a call for his birthday back while we was in Atlanta for the Ironman conference. He called me. He said he referenced an old conversation with one of the leaders in the business had said, and one of the things he complimented me is this. He said, one of the things I always saw from you is that you never quit. You always kept going. You always kept strong. You always had that hopeful voice, that energy. You always made it known that you always going to get there. And I've seen you from that day forward with some of the struggles you had. All I see you is kept fighting and fighting. And I'm proud of you, son. And listen, the little boy with me was crying. I wasn't crying, but the little boy in me was, right? And all I can say is this, right? There is things that's in the genes or in the DNA of my father that I have. And without him saying a word, he taught me a lot. I could go through a list of things he's taught me. But one of the main things I can truly say is this, is that there is just things that relentlessness, that keep going, that never give up, that just was passed down to me energy-wise, because I wasn't taught that. That's how I've been from the time I was in special education to being who I am now. Some of the things I've accomplished in my life has came from that. And I can say truly that my dad has played a major role in me being the man I am now. And I have to give that man his due respect. And that's my share for this. I'll land my plane.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. I love that, man. It's so interesting how, as we're talking about lessons from our fathers, some of the things are so intangible that get passed on. It's not oftentimes the things that they say to us. Is just a living example of their being, number one. And then, like you said, there's something in the energy, there's something in the DNA that's passed down that sometimes we just don't even honor, right? So that I love the spiritual nature of that. I love the higher recognition of that, and the vulnerability in your share about, sometimes the distance we can feel as youngsters between the man we see as our father and then where we are in our life. And I think it's beautiful that we get to a place where, because I've always been chasing those words from my father. I'm proud of you, right, man? Dad, I'm like, those words. I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. Those simple words like that are just so meaningful. And in fact, that's another lesson that I learned from my father, is the importance of, saying those key things to your sons, saying those key things to your sons and letting them know that you are proud of them. Let you know that you see the good works that they're doing. Letting them know that you see how brilliant they are. In everything that they're doing is to take the time. You guys hear me talk about honoring all the time. That's the gift from my father, and recognizing that he didn't necessarily do that. I've been wanting that so much. That's another lesson from my father, in that the honoring of people and the honoring of your kids is so critical in to do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge your share, Javon. Powerful stuff, my man. Thanks for your vulnerability as always, your true authenticity in your share, and recognize that you're right. You are a fighter. You don't quit, and you will always get to.
Wow, so powerful. I see Lamont. I don't know if he's trying to come through. If not,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
all right. Well, I'm quick anyway. I didn't plan on sharing a lot because I thought we had a lot more going on, so I didn't make way for it. But I believe I shared this last year, and it's so impressionable. And I think I'm probably going to share it like every time. It's so impressionable from my dad. As a young man, I used to sit at the table and listen to my father talk about his entrepreneurial deals that he's doing, primarily in real estate. And he would tell me about, the laundromat he owned. He'd tell me about the properties he owned. He was in a current property. He had a property down the street, and it was just awesome. He was married, not to my mother, but he was remarried. And I knew this guy from a young kid. He was a totally different guy. He used to drink and had a temper and things like that. And then, when he found his religion, he made it as like a complete 180. And when he did this 180, he just turned into a different guy, like 30, 40, 50 years, something like that. He hasn't had a drink, just very calm manner. But one of the things, like Darian said, is that, some of the biggest lessons are things that are not said. It's things that you kind of catch up to, right? For my dad going from like tempered, angry to very calm, I missed some of the things because, in the beginning, some of it used to come across, pretty strong. And then later it came across very soft. So I had to learn two different people here. And, you don't even realize that until you get older, right? So one of the things was at a certain point, I was not being appreciative. I was just not grateful and appreciative. I was like my mom had her experiences with my father, and so her experiences shaped some of my ideas. So, for instance, my mother would tell this very innocent story, and I don't even think she realized she did it, but she would tell this very innocent story about how one time, like I used to do exceptionally well in school. Always, like my grades would stay above 90. We used to have honors program and what they call century honors program. And so in the century honors program, like you had to keep your grades like above 90, 95. And I would keep my grades there. It was just my thing. And one time I needed a dictionary, and my father didn't get the dictionary. No, and I don't know the other side of the story. Maybe he didn't have the money. Maybe times were tough. Knowing what I know now, it could be anything, right? But from a young kid, my mother was so disappointed, and I'm going to express it as disappointment, right? um, that hey, here it is. You have a kid. You got this whole other family, but your kid is doing great in school and he needs a dictionary, and you can't even get a $4 or $5 dictionary. So this one story turned into like a mega thing in my head. And so no matter what my father did, now watch this, I'm a child, and as I grew, this took place over years because the biggest story was that this guy was not helping out like he should, right? But I don't know enough. But this is a story that's playing. And again, it came from just my mom's disappointment. There was no malice. I don't think it was anything like that. It's just a period of time. But I guess she was so disappointed from it. So no matter what my father did, I couldn't hear, I didn't see, I didn't understand. And so I can remember even going fast forward to being married. And I told my wife, man, this is some powerful, powerful. Okay, now. I told my wife said, well, you talked to your dad, how did it go? I said, dude, it's the same conversation every time. And so my father would say, hey, remember when I did this? And then he said, hey, remember when I did that? Right? And then he'll say, hey, remember when me and say his wife's name, we did this? And he would just loop them. And it's the same story. And I said, well, wife, what the hell is going on? Why did this guy say the same thing every single time? He's like caught on repeat. It's like the record is scratched. And I didn't get it. And so later, as my kid got older and I started experiencing certain things, it's like a light bulb went off. I said, oh, that's terrible. I said, this guy was trying to shed light on the fact that he came through for me. He came through at major times, at major points that I needed him to come through, regardless of what he did or did not do in the past, right? And so as I caught on to that, he was not telling me, hey, I did this for you, you should be appreciative. Hey, I did this, you should be grateful. Or hey, stop thinking what you're negative thinking. Never said that. Just always stay calm, was always relaxed, always you can hear the happiness in his voice, right? To just be able to share it over and over. And when it dawned on me, I said to myself, man, um, even when I think about what he did do, one time he he backed me on a business venture that when I thought about it later, I was like, okay, he had no business backing me on that business venture because this don't even line up with his religion. So he shouldn't even done it. And then I thought to myself, I don't know if he argued with his wife over this. I don't know if he said, this is my son, I have to do it to make sure that later on he didn't say I wasn't there. Like it was so much things that I realized that he should not have participated in what I was doing. And then I thought on the back end, it could have been some things happening between he and his wife that I never considered. So when I began to look at this through another set of eyes, or another set of glasses or lenses, so to speak, I began to understand this whole time he's teaching me through consistency, through patience, just being persistent about what he's telling me and teaching me the lesson until I picked up on it. And he was very compassionate, he was very loving about it, and just the demonstration of it taught me don't judge people where they are. Always see them as they intend to be, or as you intend to see how they're going to turn out. Treat them from that perspective and be patient until they get there. And everything else in between is just a disruption or some type of illusion. See people in a higher light, treat them in a higher light, be compassionate, be patient with them, and eventually they will turn into the person that they believe that they should be and the person that you see them as, because that's what we usually reflect back. So it was a very powerful lesson for me to know that actually my father had been teaching me for years and decades, to the point where when I really figured it out, I was like, man, are you slow? It took about 20 years for you to figure this thing out, bro. But they say there's a time for everything. And it really took the manifestation of having my own kid in my own life to be able to see some of the things that I disapprove of, to be able to switch places and understand what I was doing. So it did take 20 years. Yeah, I'm probably a little slow, but I'm just grateful. I'm appreciative that I was able to get the lesson, and that my father was so patient with me until I was able to catch on. My relationship with him now is just is so much better than it was before. I even developed a higher respect and regard for my stepmother, which is his wife. I've always respected her, but I developed a love and respect for her, and that took over years. Looking back, the compassion and that they put into what they were doing, and the consistency they had to keep demonstrating over and over and over that they loved, cared about me, regardless of what I said or what I did. And that is a strong father. So that's my share. I relinquish the mic.
Yeah. Woo, man, that was powerful right there. I'm always very much in awe, and I'm sure everybody would agree of your storytelling ability, my brother. You just know how to, bring people into the moment. And I love that.
I can be honest with you. I'm sitting here pitching everything in my head. Like
I know.
I got the picture. It's like a movie he's telling.
I know. So as we're talking about moments, right? How Bobby's able to bring us into moments. I wanted to highlight one of the moments that you shared because I think it's so critical. When we went to Atlanta, one of the beautiful things was we have a lot of conversations around things that we would deal with as young men growing up with our fathers, or you heard men on the stage talk about the relationship with their fathers. And what was so interesting about your share, Bobby, is that somebody told your story that you held on for so many years, and that literally shaped the way you saw your father for many, many years. And I want us to spend some time on this because this is such a big thing. How many times have you guys seen this, where a lot of guys may not have great relationship with their fathers or people in life simply because somebody shaped the way they saw or the story that they hold in their head about that particular person. And this is such a critical moment for us to discuss as we talk about lessons with our fathers, because and if you're listening on to some of my voice, you guys are here, maybe you can relate to this. I know there's a lot of guys who may have strained relationship with their fathers today, or may not be as close with their fathers because either the stories they're telling and or stories that other people have told them that has caused them to only see their father in that one dimension, right? And that has a significant impact. So I want to say to you guys that the stories that we accept, really, the stories that we accept, when Bobby demonstrated this so perfectly, like 20 years, right? 20 years. And unfortunately, some people go their whole life and transition without getting to this awareness. So I really want to make sure we hammer this home.
Can I jump in for a quick second, Darren?
Absolutely. I see you brewing just to come in. So go ahead.
I want to say that in my family dynamics, right, my dad had 3 sons before he met my mom. And when he met my mom, he married my mom. And my 3 older brothers, the picture of them that they had of my dad is not the picture that I have. I describe my dad as my champion. My second oldest brother today, over almost 70, he served in the military, and he's still going through therapy and dealing with stuff from PTSD, as well as his relationship with my dad. And he loves me. He loves me for what I am as far as who I am from my dad. But his life experience is totally, totally different. And his mom, until she died, she was bitter until she died. And because of that, the way my brothers have seen my dad is not the way that I've seen him. And I really am grateful for my relationship and my experience. But the thing is, we might be in the same house and the relationship is not the same. Because I can think of where I was with my mom and my stepdad, because then I had a stepdad, and I look so much like my father. And the verbal, the physical, and all the abuse that I experienced, just because I look like my dad.
Wow.
But then my dad was all that he was for me. So he came in as my rescue, as my superstar. But then I look at how my other brothers, that he wasn't there for them, how they see him. So, the picture that we're given is so powerful, because those are seeds that are sown. And I mean, it goes from an acorn to an oak tree to a forest. And sometimes it takes you just going back and having to root up all that stuff that has been sown in your mind.
Yeah.
It's a life work.
Yeah, it is. It is. And what you just said, Wayne, before Javon jump in, this is a powerful conversation. Like I said, we've talked about lessons to your fathers before, but we've gone into a realm of this conversation that's so critical in terms of transformation. No, Wayne just talked about the fact that, being in the same household. Listen to this. This is critical. Being in the same household, but every child can have a different experience, to the point where your sight, your insight of your father and the way you see your dad is different. So the relationship is different. Your brother's insight of their father is different, and they're literally suffering, and it still continue to suffer as a result of that. So I want to highlight something, fellas. If you have a strained relationship with your father currently, maybe you saw this topic and maybe you just triggered you. I ain't even want to kind of come on this conversation because I have nothing great to say, but you're here anyway. I really want to spend the time to ask you to evaluate. Just take the time to evaluate. How are you seeing your dad, and what is the sight that you have of your dad? What is the story that you have of your father that could potentially be skewing the way that you're seeing them and are experiencing life with them, right? There could be a potential that something could have been done and something could have been said, yes, from your father or your mom, who definitely shape the way you see them. But sometimes we can also look at, where did we create a story? Where did we create a story or a thought process about our parents or father, whatever the case is, that didn't serve us, that ultimately impacts the relationship in a very negative way, to the point of what Wayne was saying, where a son could be years later still having to deal with therapy and things like that because of the father, because of the people in their life. And I wanted to really highlight that. So Javon, I know you wanted to share something really quick, so go ahead, my brother, and bring it on, and I'll also bring on.
I'll just be real quick. I can relate. I could say, for Wayne's situation, it was a little different. It's kind of reverse. My dad didn't pick my mom. He ended up marrying somebody else after my mom, right? And it's a different feeling. The one thing I can truly say is my mom never, whatever bitterness she had, she did a great job not passing that on to me. She allowed me to see my father for my own eyes. And what I saw, I had a very optional choice to hold on to that bitterness or create bitterness within myself because of that. And the reason why I chose not to, and it's simply because I knew from a young age, that is my dad no matter what. I look like the man. If you ever see a picture with me and my dad, we look alike. And the thing that I learned from my situation, which I help to everybody, is that your dad has a story too, you know. And you may not like everything or have an understanding, but if you have the chance to understand his story, I would object for you to do so, because once you hear his story, you'll gain empathy and understanding, because you will want that from your child if you go through some things.
So good, Javon. So good, Javon. So good. I love that. Love what you just said. And I want you to highlight that again before we end the show, because that is critical. That is so critical. All right. But Lamont, the floor is yours, my brother.
So before I share, I want to bring on Mike Stowe to the show. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi.
Oh, he just dropped off.
Oh.
All right, so we'll get him back on. So it's so interesting. I want to actually share a video to kind of set the framework for. I'm going to share a video to kind of set the framework for my share about my dad. So just hold on for 1 second. Hopefully I can share this video. Or maybe it's just going to be audio. But I'm going to share it anyway. Hold on.
When a man does not feel appreciated in the area of his presence, he becomes a version of a man that he can give you and still survive. And I promise you, you will not like that version. That version of him is silent, frustrated, sharp with his words, short-tempered. How many of y'all been getting that lately? Non-communicative, because he has to become something that he can survive in.
So I share that video because when I think about my dad was a loving dad. He had a heart. My dad had a heart of gold. He was the type of man that my dad whipped me one time, beat me, and then said, "You want to go get some ice cream?"
I love it.
He said to me, "I'm not mad at." He said, "I'm mad at what you did. You got disciplined for what you did, but it doesn't mean that I don't love you." My dad used to call me his number one son. So when people ask me how many siblings do I have, I always say, five of us. I'm the second child, first son. I always claim that. My dad was a truck driver, and he was, according to my mom, never home enough. He was never around enough. And that's the story that I live with. He was never enough. He would take me on the road with him. And he had this ice cream truck, because like I say, he's a truck driver. We had this ice cream run where he would go up into the mountains of Western Maryland. And one night I was sleeping in the truck, and he woke me up and he said, "Get up, get out." And we got on top of a side of a mountain and looked up in the sky, and it was full of stars. Like I'd never seen stars like that before. And I still, as a 49-year-old man, still look up at the stars at night because of him. One time we were on the road, and we saw on the side of the road, we saw water coming out of the mountain. So we took our soda bottles, emptied our water, and got a water from out the side of the mountain and drank. Like that's the kind of man my dad was. And that's the version that I saw of him outside of the house. But inside, mom controlled the narrative. And inside, he wasn't enough. And so inside, my dad was, like he said in that video, non-communicative. And from my mom's perception, that then became my perception, my dad was weak. Regardless of all the good stuff that he did, when it came to standing up, my dad was weak. Because for me, he couldn't stand up to my mother. And so I eventually took on that. My ability to stand up for myself came from my mother. So I have more of her personality in me than I do him. I have his compassion, but I have my mother's ferociousness. And so, my dad taught me, he was the guy who taught me how to care for people. Now later in life, and this crazy part is when me and my dad had some really tough conversations, and I took the Bible out before he passed away, and it's the scripture Deuteronomy, I forget the name of it. It's train up a boy according to the way, and he won't go left or go right. And I said to my dad, when have you done this for me? And he told me, he said, listen, son, and this was in the hospital, I couldn't give you something I didn't have. Then he proceeded to tell me what had happened in his childhood. Something had happened where in the religion, there was a coup of young people, and they blamed my father for it. And it was an embarrassment to my grandfather. And it changed the relationship between my grandfather and my father. And because that relationship was changed, my father, I don't know what was disconnected, but whatever the disconnect was, came down to me. So I really had to look back at my dad and said, my dad did the best that he could with what he had. And so it wasn't, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I know that he did the very best that he could. My dad used to have a T-shirt that said, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And that's one of the things he would always tell me. If you want something done right, son, do it yourself. And as a truck driver, he was the guy who other guys, the owners would have him train other guys on how to drive. My dad was an amazing truck driver. But he didn't have the support because he wanted to have his own business. He didn't have the support that he needed from my mother in order for him to grow his business. And then to even start the business. And then eventually they separated, and it was the last few years of my dad's life weren't very good. But I was there for him. I was there for him. I was there when he took his last breath. So, we talk about lessons from fathers. This life journey is it's not one size fit all. Everybody's situation is so different. And we're trying to navigate our adult life based on a lot of the things that has happened as children. And it's not until we do a whole lot of forgiving. Me being in me having drug addiction. When I was in New York in like early 2007, 2006, I had a psychosis breakdown, went back home to Maryland. My dad was in the midst of drug addiction. I had no idea. When I went back, I worked through it with him and had some real hard conversations about it. But it's just amazing how he was going through it and I was going through it. We both didn't know we were both going through it. Wow. So I had to do a lot in order to get out of it. I had to do a lot of forgiving and releasing of a lot of that past stuff, because this is what I've said to about both my parents. They did the best they could. If they knew better, they would have done better. I'm 100% guaranteed. Knew that they were married at 19 years old. They had no business getting married. With 5 kids by the time they were 26. They had no kids. Right. So there was a lot. There was a lot there. But here I am. I survived it. All 4 of my siblings are still alive, and we survived it. So he did the best. He did the best he could. He gave me his middle name. We had the same initial, LRG. My dad was an awesome. He was an awesome man who just had some really bad foundational stuff that he tried to navigate and didn't get the therapy that he needed, didn't get the support that he needed. and did the best he could to raise a family.
Mm.
Wow.
So, so question for you, Lamont, because you just mentioned he didn't get the therapy that he needed. He did the best, but there's a lot of things that you're clearly learning that we don't want to replicate in our life. And what are those things that you're saying, not just for yourself, but even for the fellas who are listening, that you're saying that, hey, these are the things that we want to be doing because we deal with so much internally as men?
If I understand your question correctly, I mean, if we're holding on, I mean, there's some of us who do need therapy, right? There's some of us who do need to have heart level conversations with our dads if they're still around. We some of us who still need to do some forgiving and letting go, and stop replaying those same stories in our head. Because if you continue to replay those same stories in your head, all you're doing is keeping it present. I've completely, for my dad, I only hold on to the good, because I know because I know that if he had the tools, I know my dad would have done it, and that's how I look at him, as a man who would have done it had he known how to do it.
Can I jump in for a second? The work that I do, right, as a dream builder coach, I work with people reference to what the dream of their lives is, right? And that is your purpose, right? And the purpose and the dream that you have for your life is like a seed, right? And one of the modules that I deal with, which is one of the only modules that go twice, is forgiveness. Because forgiveness is like a weed that can actually choke the seed of your dream. And unless you and it's not one size fits all, because forgiveness is an emotional, spiritual, and it's a mental process that is, I mean, it goes beyond just a conversation like we're having. So forgiveness is so key in just the living the life that we're supposed to live, because wherever there is any kind of residue, and because our life experiences are so different, it means there's a different work that each and every one of us have to do reference to forgiveness. So I can't highlight what Lamont is saying reference to the forgiveness work that is needed. And it is something that we need support to do it with, because I have to do forgiveness work. And talk about forgiveness, there's some forgiveness work that I had to do with people who were gone already, because I was still carrying the residue of stuff that had happened. And although they were gone, I still had to do it, because if there's residue of unforgiveness from folks who are gone, I still have to do that work. Not just the present, but even the past. Because if I don't, it's going to go with me, and it's going to stop me from being the best version of myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, very powerful, Wayne. Appreciate you. Definitely appreciate you sharing and adding those insights. And Lamont, you know, what was so cool and interesting about what you said is that your father had better tools, you're pretty sure he would have used them. You know, one of the biggest things with my father, listening to some of the things he would tell me at the table, he would tell me about the names people used to call him and how frequently it would happen. And it never really dawned on me, because I had not, there was like one or two times somebody has called me out of a name, right, using the N word, right? But he used to tell me how, some of the people he tried to do business with, they would call him the name, and they would refer to him and try to get him to, basically, from what we know now, his self-image, reduce his self-image, and don't think of himself too highly. And so if you think about, this is not too long ago. When you think about our parents and what they had to overcome and the things they had to deal with, especially, dealing with other races, and it wasn't acceptable. When you think about the fact they had to get in the car, drive to the library, pull out a book, read a book, return the book, then go apply the stuff, and we have the information right at our fingertips, they didn't have the advantages we have. It wasn't readily available. So if you don't have the money now, you still might be able to Google something. Well, back then, if you don't have the money, you had to walk to the library. You still got to take out the book, probably read it while you're there. You can't be home and then walk back home. That's the best you can do. So that it's definitely different. And we've collapsed time through all of the automation and, tools and apps and, internet things. So I believe you. I believe the same thing about my father. He had more tools. If he had a bigger support system, he ran as a lone wolf, didn't really trust much people, because, he thought that people didn't really want to see him come up. but he still was able to buy properties. He was still able to open a laundromat. And your father was still able to open his business, even though he wasn't able to, what we call today, grow and scale, right? But he still got it done under the conditions. And that's awesome. But, what are the effects of what happens when your father's not in your life? A lot of us had our fathers there, didn't exactly go to where we wanted it to go. Some of us had our fathers there, and we had great relationships with our father, learned great lessons. But what is the impact in life when you don't have your father in your life for whatever reason, right? And so we wanted to bring on Mike tonight. Mike made a comment last week on the father's thing, and we ran it back this week. And so, Mike, we are very appreciative, man. We honor you. We thank you for joining us tonight. And so we kind of want to hear a little bit about your story and maybe just a little bit about the impact of what it was like not having your father. Were you still able to gather lessons with your father not being there? Did you get those lessons from somewhere else and had to do it by the school of hard knocks? So we'd like to just hear a little bit from you, Mike.
Hey, what's going on, fellow Lions? How are you guys? Can you hear me well?
We can hear you, champion.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, Bobby, he pulled my leg to get me up here. He knows I'm always watching from the outskirts, but I love you guys. I love the group. I love what y'all represent. So I'm in here, heart level, as you say. So I would say even the influences that you guys had, from those minor stories and stuff like that, it's the same thing even when you don't have a father present. To just keep it real, heart level, my dad was a career drug dealer. I mean, it was no other stories, no business ventures, no other, just straight up, that was the game. And a dangerous guy, you could say, or that's what everybody else says. And, you hear those stories from ground up, from day one. And even without the presence, just hearing the stories of a person like that, your uncles, they're not your dad, the friends of the family, they're not your dad. So the only person that you really looked up to, even without the presence, was still the stories of your dad, because, they talk about him, in that particular community, they talked about him as if he was, a savior, a god, everybody loved him and all that good stuff like that. And you didn't really hear any positivity behind it. It was all, he was a great guy, but, things happen. So influence wise, as a teenager, of course, you follow track, you do a lot of the same stuff. You tell yourself you're going to be better at it, than he was, and all that good stuff like that. Because, I mean, you still have a child's mind, regardless. I think until you really have experiences to mature your mind, the age is nothing. Like, you really have to break your brain and put it back together with adult pieces. So, honestly, with the influence, that was one part of it. But I know it's going to sound crazy, and I know it's racking my brain a few days about, what else can I talk about this? The absence thereof, is normally not much conversation, but in this case, I'm appreciative that you got to be thankful for your life that you have. If you're not appreciative of what you personally have going on, you ain't nobody else going to appreciate you. So when I look at it, I say I didn't have a standard, and that's a bad thing for some people that aren't motivated. But, I didn't necessarily have a standard of a father to kind of point my as my target. And to be honest, I kind of believe that, I'm going to surpass anything that he ever done. I'm going to surpass anything they ever talked about. I have plans to be a very present father, in the kid's life, and try to start businesses and kind of pretty much do for the next generation what y'all's father did for you guys. So if I had to say, I didn't learn the humility thing. I didn't learn how to conduct myself orderly, if that makes sense. I didn't know how to come in and charm the room, and this and that. I didn't really get a lot of that. But as far as the life lessons that I went through as a teenager prepared me so much. You know, I went to prison at 18. I was there for 2 years, the first time I ever got in trouble. And I came out on the other side of that thing, and I was just like, you know what? I got a taste. Like, you know, there's not really too many options, you know, once you've already went down the road. So I just kind of came home and changed my own narrative. You know, I appreciated not having that person that I had to live up to. And you know, I'm not at counseling talking about what my father done to me as a child, because you know what I mean? You know, so deep down, if I could say, I wish I could have learned how to, you know, how men can have heat conversations and keep it professional, you know, and nobody's, you know, throwing blows, and nobody's talking about nobody's mama or nothing like that, you know. So I wish I could have learned how to like really conduct myself as, I guess, a responsible person, a respectful person. But I come from a matriarchal family, and my grandma raised me. So God always has like a supplemental plan for your life. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, grandma came through, taught me how to make phone calls, taught me how to have confidence, you know, to talk to people. And she believed in me. Like, outside of all of that, she believed in me. And that was the game changer. So I would say, if my father would have, you know, stayed living, because he was, I mean, I think he got killed. I was like 6 months old. So I don't have like no memories. But I believe that if he wouldn't have changed, and then he still would have been present, it would have probably not led me to my destiny, which I still don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's a good thing. So for the most part, like I said, I wish I could have really learned that, you know, how to control your anger, control your emotions, you know, because we got a lot of adult children. You know, I was an adult child until my mid-20s. You know, I didn't know how to really vent without crying. I didn't know how to talk to people. You know, I didn't know how to have heated conversations without only having, you know, one ultimatum at the end. So I'm really thankful for the awakening, you know, and I'm thankful for the lack of the presence, because who really knows what it could have caused, especially for my other siblings, you know. So that's really about all I got. You know, I could go on for days, but we're gonna stay on subject. I got a good one for next show.
Mike, man, I really appreciate you sharing. Look, is it just me, Lions, or is this guy sound like he should be leading a room? Like, he's very calm
Yeah.
and well poised.
I
Right?
hear that accent, man. I love the accent, bro.
Hey, that's grandma right there. That's not me. That's grandma.
Man, that's awesome. And just for the record, bro, just for the record, I just learned how to stop having heated conversations not too many years ago, and my father was right there. He was calm as all get up. But no, I love what you said, man. And first of all, again, I just want to acknowledge the fact that you showed up. I appreciate you showing up.
Oh, I was coming, Bobby. I was coming. I was coming. Hey, look, this is what I told Bobby. I said there had to have been something in the universe, because, you know, I'd been thinking about him. I had been thinking about you guys, you know, and I'm a firm believer that, like, when you send those waves out, they get intercepted, you know what I mean? The next thing, it's almost like that person that you thought about, and then they call you 2 or 3 weeks later. You know, that's not a coincidence. I mean, when it's heart level, when all the strings are connected, you could almost telepathically talk to each other, because all right, I'm gonna take a few minutes, you guys. Give me a few minutes, all right? So Bobby hit me up like last April, right? Like, you know, he was telling me, you know, he gave me this 30-minute motivational phone call. Like, I mean, I went and like kicked down a concrete wall after I talked with this guy, right? All right, and then heart level, once again, love you guys, he sends me this thing about this book, right? The book's like $250, and I'm like, dude, my mortgage has been like late the past couple months. Like, And I'm like, oh, this is like another one of those schemes. All these dudes are super successful and blah, blah, blah. You know, you tell yourself anything. Like you run from, you know, it's like the cattle boy where his dad told him, you know, don't talk to bankers. Bankers are the devil, you know. And that's another thing, you know, that I didn't learn from, you know, my father. I didn't learn business. I didn't learn all of that good stuff. You know, I'm out here. I'm running. I own a tree business, so I'm kind of doing that myself. And my wife's an entrepreneur as well. We're both two hustlers, so I got a hustling spirit from my father. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and I'm like, man, all right. I still love these guys, these Confidence Factor guys. They've never asked me for anything, so you know, I'm not going to just completely swipe everybody off and be like, nah, that's, you know, it's a big Ponzi scheme. So I go and I look, right? And I look, y'all said heart level, y'all messed up, all right? So I go and I find this YouTube video by, I think it was recited by like Earl Nightingale, and it was called The Strangest Secret, right? And at that point, like, it's April. I ain't had one job yet for my business. I'm sitting at my 40-hour job. Like, man, this blows, right? Like, I'm at work, but I'm trying to grow myself. So I watched that video, and he's just talking about, you know, the power of the mind and how you got to get the wheels turning. And if you guys have watched it, Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secrets, 30-minute video is great. Pretty sure y'all watched it. But anyway, that day I started putting it to work. And I never forgot any of that Bobby told me. Not one word of it. And I'm telling myself, yo, Bobby's right. 5 years is too long to get my business to that point. I need a short track. I needed this. I needed that, you know. And I just started believing. You know, I just started like imagining the phone calls. You know, I just started, you know, really telling myself like, yo, this has got to work. Like, I'm the creator of my own destiny, and right now I want to create some revenue. So it was like 2 days after watching that video and really, really staying positive about my situation, and phone calls started coming in, you know, and I ended up getting, you know, more equipment last year for my business and all that good stuff. And I said, you know, all right, I'm in a better shape now. Maybe I can afford that damn book now. But, but you know, at the end of the day, Bobby, I appreciate that phone call. Even though you might have thought I fell off the end of the earth, I've always been right here. I've always been watching you guys. I respect what y'all do. You know, I hope to really grow to a level that you guys are. And I tell people, if I could just work for like 9 months and then travel for like 3 months giving money away, that would be like awesome. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be successful for myself. I want to be successful for everybody else that I encountered along the way. Now, I'm not going to, you know, go back to the projects for you, but I'll definitely hook you up. I'll definitely give you opportunities and all that stuff. So, yeah, like I said, I appreciate you guys bringing me on, man. Y'all are really, really helpful. And I tell a lot of my other guys that are not necessarily the most business professionals, like, nah, man, these dudes are real. Like,
Mike, listen, honor you, brother. Really, really appreciate. You know, they say that you don't know your impact until you get some feedback. And I know that the brothers here, all the Lions, are really appreciative of what you shared.
Yes.
And I appreciate you keeping it heart level. Yeah, it's all but you know, it's heart level, right? It's heart level. So we appreciate that.
I like to jump in too.
Yeah.
Real quick,
And so
right?
let me finish real quick because
Go ahead. Sorry.
Just had a conversation with, I'm pretty sure that's what Javon's gonna do, but I wanted to just really confirm what you're saying, Mike, because I just took this out of my wallet, right? And so this is my from The Strangest Secret. I have my number here, and I, like he said to do, and on the other side he says, "Ask and it shall be given, seeking you shall find, and knocking it shall be open to you." It's what he told you to do, right? So this has been in my wallet. It's so funny. It's been in my wallet so long that the edges are starting to fall off, right? and it's starting to turn brown around the outside. But I'm doing what Earl Nightingale says: keep it with you. Look at it every single day, and I've been doing it for a long time. Now, what I didn't know, I probably should have made the number a little smaller. I made it so big that I just think it's taking longer, which brings me to my last point. I didn't think you fell off the edge of the earth. It used to be before, like if I spoke something, I wanted to see something instantly so that I know it worked. But one thing, I've been learning is that Neville Goddard, who's somebody I love on YouTube, really just brought me in tune with the spirit and the divine. And he says that, there's every seed has a certain amount of time to grow, right? A chicken takes a certain amount of time. A horse takes a certain amount of time. But when we speak words and we speak and we inspire, it means to be in spirit, breathe the breath of life. We're planting a seed in one another through encouragement, through inspiration. That's what we do for each other. And we never know when that seed is going to sprout or mature. We know how long the baby takes, but how long does it take for you to manifest your dreams? How long does it take for a word that you've spoken into someone or someone has spoken into you to come to maturity? Well, we don't know that part because it's a spiritual thing. So I didn't think you fell off the edge of the earth, but I'm so happy that you gave me some feedback about the results of the conversation, because it just teaches me that I don't need to see anything. Just keep going and doing what, we need to do what we do. And I think it was Price Pritchett who said in U Squared, absence of evidence is not evidence of its absence. This is what a powerful conversation I had with my father. My father, I was telling him about this absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And he just brought it back and he made it very practical. He said, son, it's like when you take the seed and you plant it in the ground, right? And you go water and you don't see anything. You thinking, man, this thing ain't working, ain't nothing happening. And then finally, over time, you see something sprout out of the ground. And then we jump up and down. We're like, it's working, it's working, it's working. But the truth is, it's always been working. You just don't see it. And so that's that birthing process. That's that maturing process that takes place. That's that developing in the dark that takes place. And then you begin to sprout. So, brother, tonight you spoke so eloquently. You stayed on topic. When you did veer off, it's still relevant. And we honor and we appreciate you. And we appreciate you coming to give us feedback about what we're doing for you. So that means the world to us, because that gives us a little bit more encouragement to just keep going regardless of what we see. So Javon, I'm going to come over to you, brother.
All right, so we had the conversation about the Victoria's Secret this morning, and I recognized where I fell off, and I rededicated myself today. But Mike, I want to just say this, your storytelling is pretty good. I thoroughly enjoyed your share. From a heart level standpoint. And one of the things I want to let you know is this, right? You said something, I have to remind you this. You're on that level. And you've been on that level for a long time. So remember, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to get somewhere, we don't realize when we're there. At the end of the day, you're on this live with us. You're here, you're present. So I want to let you know that you played a vital role into this broadcast. And I pass my mic to you. That's my mic call.
Heart level.
Yeah, man. Heart level. This is a great conversation. And one of the biggest takeaways I have from this conversation tonight is no matter what has happened with our fathers, you can take a look at the 5 men that showed up tonight, and you can see 5 men who have taken whatever lessons they needed to learn to become the men they are today. And this group is not a shabby group of 5 men, right? So regardless of what our fathers wasn't able to give us, and thankful for all the things they were able to give us, that we can move forward and become the greatest, best version of ourselves, taking every lesson that we've learned from our fathers and beyond, and move forward. It doesn't have to mean that we stop in life, but we are on that trajectory of becoming better versions of ourselves. So that's the thing that we can be proud of. And for any guy out there who may feel stuck, you can let that go and move forward in your life. So thanks for everybody for showing up. Bobby, you want to do this inspiration injection and let anybody had anything else to say?
That's it. Oh, Darren, you complete?
No, I'm not complete. I can't be complete without. I can't be complete without honoring Mike, yo. Come on, now. You know, hey, listen, Mike, don't think you're gonna get off like that, man. You ain't gonna get off until I sow these words.
Oh, I knew you were coming. I knew you were coming.
I gotta do this. You know, so just like everybody has said, this conversation was really stamped by your share. The importance of this conversation was stamped by your share. Sometimes we think we veer off in a different direction, but what we're doing is we're just putting the right seal on whatever it is that we're doing. And so I honor you and thank you so much for the gift that you've given us tonight in your presence, the gift that you've given us in your share, the acknowledgement of the work that we're doing, because as Javon says, you know what, you're on that level. And we also need to have that feedback, as Bobby said, to recognize sometimes the value in the work that we're providing. And in your share, you're provided a lot of insights for us around how we need to engage the men in this community at a different level, so that instead of them telling stories that extend their relationship gap with us, we can shorten the gap a little bit better. So your presence is felt, your share is felt, your share is appreciated and honored, and thank you so much for that. I just want to take the time to honor you, brother, before we close out the show.
Can I say something quickly? I just want to say, as the elder in the house, right? You have impacted my life today. At 60, you actually made a major contribution to my life, you know? And, you know, I just want to say something in reference to a quotation that one of my mentors says. And what she says is, the content of my life is the curriculum of my evolution. The content of my life is the curriculum of my evolution. And that is everything that I've experienced in life. That content is the curriculum, but it actually brings my evolution. So everything that each and every one of us have experienced, that's the curriculum. But the outcome of the curriculum is actually who we become. So the content of our lives, everything which is good, bad, ugly, not whatever it is, the content of our lives is the curriculum for our evolution. And that's why, like Lamont says, we are advancing, becoming the best version of ourselves because of everything that has happened to us. So thanks again, Mike. And hey, as the elder in the house, I tell you, you've impacted me today.
Hey, I appreciate it, Mr. Wayne.
Oh my God. So awesome. So awesome. Guys, listen, what a tight, man. I knew tonight would be great. I didn't know it was going to be this good. So as we close out, I want to shout out to the professor, always setting the framework, the producer, Lamont Gwynn, for making us look good, Dr. Love Jones for teaching us that we got to consistently level up, Wayne Moody, who's the dream building life coach and the elder in the group. And a big shout out to Rudy LaRose, who's recovering and feeling better. It is his birthday. Happy birthday to you, Rudy. You were always in the building. Definitely. So today's inspiration. And I'm going to say it's inspired by Mike Stowe tonight. He was a true lion that showed up and showed out tonight. So dope, because you never know where the talent and the gift are going to come from. But like Michael Stowe said in his share tonight, listen, inspiration injection is this. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools that you may have at your command. And better tools will be found as you go along. Whether your father was there, not there. Gentlemen, it's up to you to work with what you got so you can get to what you're trying to get to. We appreciate you guys for joining. We hope you got something from this. Don't forget, if you're watching the replay, type hashtag replay and put it in the comments so we know that somebody went back and circled back and take a look. And if
I guess he got stuck in the matrix.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He got too excited over there. He the whole system.
Bringing all the fire. So as Bobby was saying, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and comment hashtag replay at the bottom. We certainly appreciate you guys joining us. And listen, we want your feedback. We want your feedback. What do you like it about the show? What do you want us to talk about? And if there's any conversations that you're having, you know, and you don't want to talk about in the group, feel free to reach out to either Bobby or Rudy or Mike or Wayne or Javon or myself. Reach out to us individuals so we can have these conversations, because the faster we have these conversations, the faster you get more transformation. All right. So anyway, champions, Lions, I appreciate you guys. We honor you guys. Thank you so much. You are a gift to this world. Never forget it. You matter. You matter. You matter. In everything that we do, we keep it heart level.
Heart level. Heart level.
Take care, everyone.
All right.